two women were targets of a man who liked to target young women in California. They lost their lives at the hands of the same man just years apart. It took 3 decades for the man responsible to be brought to justice. In 1981, 20-year-old Selena Keough's deceased body was found under bushes near an apartment building in Montclair in San Bernardino County. She was strangled. 5 years later, in 1986, 22-year-old Mary Duggan's life was ended. Her body was found in the trunk of her car in a parking lot in the Los Angeles suburb of Burbank. She was also strangled. The cases went cold for decades until 2019, when they were linked to Horace Van Voltz using investigative genetic genealogy. On November 15, 2019, Voltz was arrested in Inglewood during a traffic stop. At his trial in August 2022, the prosecution argued that Voltz was a sexually motivated serial perpetrator. The defense argued that he had consensual intercourse with the women and someone else ended their lives. Voltz described himself as a swinger and said that he could not remember meeting the victims. The prosecutors also said that a re-examination of evidence showed a DNA link between Voltz and a third slaying in Ventura County, where 25-year-old Jana Rowe was strangled and left on a trash pile. The prosecutor noted during Voltz's trial that DNA evidence, which links the defendant to DNA from male DNA found in Jana Rowe's mouth and private parts, was not available for testing when Voltz was acquitted of her 1988 slaying in Ventura County, noting that he cannot be retried for that crime, but the jury could use it as pattern evidence. The 9-man, 3-woman panel deliberated for about 3 hours. The jurors also found true the special circumstance allegations of multiple slayings during an assault involving both women and slaying during sodomy involving Selena. Voltz's attorney, Damon L. Hobdy, told the jurors that despite the DNA evidence, the prosecutors failed to prove that his client, who alleged that he was a swinger, assaulted and strangled the women. Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman told the jurors at the end of her closing argument, "To believe the defendant's story, you would have to throw out all your common sense. You would have to believe this defendant is the most unlucky person on the planet, to have 3 women all turn up deceased with the defendant's male DNA inside them." Voltz has been unable to explain any of the evidence tying him to the slayings in this case, including DNA evidence found on or in the bodies of each of the women, who were discovered either fully or partially nude. The defense lawyer countered that the prosecution did not prove that Voltz is guilty. He said the following, urging the jury to acquit Voltz of both slayings. "If the evidence shows he is not guilty, which it does, do your duty." He acknowledged that his client, a swinger who cheated on his wives and girlfriends, is not perfect, but the defense attorney said that does not prove his client is a serial perpetrator. While on the stand, Voltz told the jurors that he did not remember Mary or Selena and was not responsible for their slayings or that of Jana, whom he admitted he knew. Voltz said, "My male DNA means I may have had intercourse with the person. It does not mean I took their lives. I am telling you, I did not slay anyone." On August 18, 2022, Horace Van Voltz Jr. was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree slaying in connection with the cases of Mary Duggan in 1986 and Selena Keough in 1981. He was sentenced on September 19th to 2 consecutive terms of life in prison without the possibility of parole. District Attorney Gaskin said, "Using the latest in technology and forensics, we were able to secure a conviction against someone who targeted young women. I hope that today's guilty verdict provides some comfort to the victims' families, who have waited more than 3 decades to see this result." The investigative technology used in Voltz's case involved detectives accessing commercial DNA databases, loading DNA material from the crime, and finding a relative's match that can point toward a suspect. Mary's mother said in a statement, "When you get past the shock of hearing your daughter is no longer alive, you wonder who is out there that did this. Then, you just miss her so much, every day, at every family gathering and holiday. You do not think of who after so many years. It is one thing that your child passed away at only 22 years old. It is a whole other thing to know she suffered at the hands of a monster. Selena's sister, Sabrina Plourde, said it was difficult to sit through Voltz's trial. She said after hearing the graphic details of what happened to her sister, "I did not know how bad it was until I came to court." She urged the judge to impose the strongest punishment available. Also in court were the parents and brother of Jana Rowe, whose slaying Voltz had been acquitted of decades ago in Ventura County. Jana's mother, Marcia Connor, called Voltz's latest trial bittersweet, saying she was thankful for the outcome, though her family has had to live with the knowledge that they would never find justice. She said that she wanted to thank everyone involved in solving this case and bringing it to trial, and hoped that the verdict brings some closure to the families that have suffered through these past long years of heartbreak. Voltz's attorney, Habdi, read a statement from his client's sister, Cheryl, who wrote that he has been a good brother and friend. She said in the statement, "We will always love him as Jesus Christ loves him." Voltz maintains that he is innocent. A lady's life was taken in her own home in 1997. It took almost 22 years before DNA advancements helped to crack the case and bring the perpetrator to justice. On May 16, 1997, 79-year-old Virginia Cecilia Farrell was discovered beaten and stabbed till her end in her Clay Township home in Michigan. DNA evidence was collected at the crime scene at the time, but the police had no leads and the case went cold. 10 years later, in 2007, an initial Michigan State Police cold case investigation developed a DNA profile, but no suspects were identified. A second cold case investigation was started 12 years later in 2019, and thanks to advancements in DNA technology, the case was finally cracked. The initial evidence that was collected in 1997 gave the police a lead. The suspect in the case was identified as 54-year-old John Germain of Heartland. He was arrested by Michigan State Police at his home in August 2022. Germain is charged with open slaying, first-degree criminal conduct, and breaking and entering a building with intent. He was being held on $1 million bond. Amy Goodrich, an assistant prosecuting attorney, said that Germain had family in the area where the crime took place. During Germain's testimony, he told the jury that he did not assault or take the life of Virginia. He said that he was living with his parents at the time of the slaying down the street from her Harcus Court home in Clay Township. His words were, "By the truth of the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus, I did not end her life." His attorney asked him if he ever had any arguments with Virginia, to which he said he did not. He said he was at home on May 16, 1997, and he noticed his dogs were barking loudly, but that nothing else significant happened that night. When he was questioned by prosecutor Gilliatt, he became flustered. Gilliatt asked him how he could remember his dogs barking on a night 26 years ago and why he had not told the police after the slaying was reported. Gilliatt also questioned Germain about his DNA at the scene, including a hair found on Virginia's body. Germain said he had no idea why the hair was there or why his DNA was found under her fingernails. He suggested that his DNA could have gotten under her nails after she visited his parents' house, and that she must have scratched the furniture in their home, which had his DNA on it. Both Gilliatt and defense attorney Frederick Lepley focused on the DNA evidence in the case, the hair, the DNA under the fingernails, and a matching haplotype associated with the Y chromosome that also matched Germain. Gilliatt told the jury it was lucky the case could be prosecuted, as much of the DNA could not have been compared in 1997. He said the Michigan State Police investigated a wide range of suspects close to Virginia, and only Germain was a match for the DNA samples. In arguing that the slaying was premeditated, Gilliatt showed the jury pictures of Virginia's body, which had been stabbed 24 times on the chest, head, neck, and hands. Gilliatt said the attacker cut through Virginia's window screens to enter the house. She had been partially undressed in an apparent assault, which the prosecutor said all showed the attacker was acting with intent. Gilliatt told the jurors, Think of this woman, her life, and how it was taken from her in this humiliating way. Lepley, however, said that several of the expert witnesses said that there were other DNA samples from the scene that were never tested. He said that witnesses told the jury DNA on her underwear was found to have come from 4 sources. There were 2 other unidentified sources of DNA under her fingernails besides Germain's, and there were 5 other hairs that were not tested, in addition to the one that matched his client. Lepley said, "We probably all have hairs on us, which we do not know where they came from." Gilead said during rebuttal that those 5 other hairs were from a woman and were likely from Virginia's body. Lepley said that the DNA match from the swabs also left room for doubt because it was based on a haplotype taken from a male Y chromosome. Instead of being a perfect match for Germain, Lepley said it simply did not rule him out. The same haplotype would match one in every 1,200 men. Lepley also noted that there was no bruising found around Virginia's private parts and no male DNA samples or stains. Lepley said, "I do not think they have proven there was an actual assault or penetration. Germain was previously charged with the first-degree criminal conduct, but the charge was dropped at the prosecution's request 2 weeks before the trial." Gilead said that he wanted to reduce the amount of evidence the jury had to consider reducing the likelihood the case would end in a hung jury, as the first trial did. Gilead told the jury during rebuttal the case was an easy decision, saying the idea that Germain's hair got on the victim by chance was beyond belief, particularly given there was no suggestion that Germain ever met her while she was wearing her nightgown. None of the other hairs were found on her. In September 2023, the verdict came after Germain testified and the attorneys gave their closing arguments. It was his second jury trial after the first one resulted in a hung jury. 55-year-old Germain was found guilty of first-degree slaying after an hour of deliberation. St. Clair County Chief Assistant Prosecutor Stephen Gilead said he was glad to get the verdict. He said, "I am very happy that justice was done and very happy for Virginia's family and friends. This is something they have lived with for 26 years, and they finally have closure." On November 6th, as Circuit Court Judge Cynthia Lane sentenced John Germain to life in prison without parole, he maintained his innocence to the end. Germain told the court the following when given the opportunity to make a statement: "This is wrong. Nothing I can say is going to change anything, but it was not me." Judge Lane told the court that life without parole was the only sentence she could give under the law. Both the defense and prosecution chose not to make any arguments at the sentencing, though Lepley said that Germain would appeal the verdict. Mark Farrell, Virginia's grandson, read a prepared statement to the court, saying that her friends and family suffered not only because of her demise, but also because of the time it took to find justice. Mark said, "A popular saying when somebody passes away is 'time heals all wounds.' Your Honor, I am still waiting to heal." He asked the judge to imprison Germain for life, saying that he had already lived more than 20 years without facing punishment for the slaying. A man tragically lost his life in 2002. Thanks to witnesses coming forward, the person responsible was finally arrested and brought to justice. On May 22, 2002, in Elkhart County, Indiana, 59-year-old Robert Reed was found savagely beaten till his end in his home. He was found by his neighbor when she checked in on him after she noticed his front door was left wide open. The injuries Robert had sustained were so severe that his head was misshapen from the beating. There was a large amount of blood under his head and a sizable cut above his right eye, which was swollen. When the police responded to the scene on the 600 block of South 3rd Street, the forensics were unsure where to start testing first, as there was so much blood splattered around the house. There were bloodstains located on the bathroom and kitchen floor, as well as on the inside of the deadbolt of the front door. It seemed that there was a struggle in the bedroom as the furniture had been thrown around. An autopsy found that Robert lost his life due to the multiple injuries to his head and neck. His demise was officially ruled as a slaying. Unfortunately, the case did not garner many leads, and eventually went cold as all the blood they had tested from the crime scene came back as a match to the victim and not his attacker. In 2021, 19 years later, an unnamed witness spoke to the police and said that Marcus Love had confided in them not long after the attack had taken place, that he was responsible. The witness mentioned that they noticed he had blood on his clothes and multiple cuts on his fingers when they were speaking. After investigating these claims, the police came across another witness who confirmed that Marcus used to be friends with Robert and even stayed at his house regularly to take illegal substances together. However, the police were not able to get a conviction based on two witness statements. They needed some concrete evidence. In 2011, the police had actually interviewed Marcus in connection with Robert's demise, where he denied personally knowing Robert, but admitted that he recognized him from occasionally seeing him on the Faith Mission, a local charity that provides help to people in need. When interviewed again in 2021, after the two witnesses had come forward with statements that did not correlate with Marcus's story, he denied being in the residence at that time, but later admitted he went to Robert's home frequently. He denied ever getting into a physical fight with him. Sergeant Greg Harder decided to review the evidence of the crime scene with fresh eyes. When he was looking through the photos, he noticed a blood-stained area of Robert's shirt that looked like it had dropped onto him from someone else, whilst Robert was laying on the ground. It was not a pattern of blood that was consistent with belonging to the victim, as it was clearly blood droplets on the back of the shirt. A partial DNA profile was found, and when tested, it was confirmed that it was a mixture of two people's blood, Robert Reed's and Marcus Love's. After this discovery, the police presented the evidence to Love, who changed his story for the third time, stating that he could not remember whether or not he had actually gotten into a physical fight with Robert. When looking for a probable cause, they took note that Robert's wallet had been emptied, and with Love being an addict, they theorized that Love beat him after Robert refused to give him any more money for illegal substances. In August 2022, Love was charged with 1 count of slaying. Love admitted that he violently robbed Robert in 2002. He expressed remorse before his sentence was handed down. He said, "I wish I could take it back. This has changed my life, changed my kid's life. I ask for leniency, for mercy of the court. Please forgive me for what I have done." Love entered his plea on October 17th, 2024, just days before his second jury trial. A mistrial had been declared in July, the morning after jurors were seated and had listened to opening arguments. He pleaded guilty to an amended charge of robbery resulting in serious injury, a Class A felony, as part of an agreement that saw the slaying charge dismissed. In November 2024, 52-year-old Love was sentenced to 40 years in prison, with 5 years suspended to probation. Elkhart County Deputy Prosecutor Anna Rich said it was good to finally get closure on Robert's slaying and thanked the slaying unit for its diligence. She said, "Reed was an older gentleman, and his life certainly mattered. He had dignity, which was not respected by Mr. Love in any way." A man was slain, and the perpetrators quickly attracted the attention of the investigators. But it took another 10 years and DNA analysis before a judge said that the police had enough evidence to obtain arrest warrants for the pair. In 2005, businessman Egbert Stuart was found fatally stabbed in his Heritage Hills condo on St. Thomas in the Caribbean, with a large kitchen knife sticking out of his neck. 63-year-old Egbert was a popular businessman who owned Mano's restaurant, adjacent to the Fort Christian parking lot. On the morning of June 22, 2005, his wife, Vivienne Stewart, called the police and said that she had returned home to find her husband deceased in a pool of blood. 6 days later, someone, identified in a police affidavit only as a concerned citizen, called the police to tell them that Vivienne was having an affair with Jacques Keough. Both were Haitian nationals. Vivienne and her lover, Jacques, quickly attracted the attention of the investigators. The police interviewed Keough on June 30th, and he stated that he and Vivienne Stewart were co-workers involved in an intimate relationship. Keough moved to Pennsylvania a month later, and the police interviewed additional witnesses in the summer of 2006. The police could not find enough evidence to make an arrest, and the case went cold. Almost 10 years later, DNA analysis concluded that Keough was a major contributor of the DNA found in the hallway and bedroom where Egbert was slain. The cold case squad took up the case for further investigation in March 2015, and the police finally arrested and charged Vivian Stuart and Keough in 2016, more than 11 years after Egbert's slaying. Keough was arrested in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and Vivian was arrested in St. Thomas by members of the Cold Case Squad and Investigation Bureau. Prosecutors with the Virgin Island Attorney General's Office filed court documents on September 25, 2019, charging Keough with 8 crimes, including first-degree slaying, second-degree slaying, and 6 charges related to use of a dangerous weapon and assault. There is no statute of limitations in the Virgin Island Code for certain serious crimes, including slaying, felony child abuse and neglect, felony crimes, embezzlement of public money, and falsification of public records. But all other felony crimes must be charged within 3 years of the offense, and misdemeanor arrests must be made within 1 year. Judge Francois agreed with Keough's defense attorney that the statute of limitations had elapsed for all but the slaying charges, and Keough did not flee justice or attempt to live in hiding before his 2016 arrest, which could have triggered a lifting of the time limits. Judge Francois ruled in 2020 that outside of the one interview in June of 2005, the people failed to provide evidence that they attempted to interview Keough again. Their trials were delayed for 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and Judge Francois issued another opinion, denying Keough's motion to dismiss the remaining slaying counts. Judge Francois found that there is no statute of limitations for slaying charges, and Keough's right to due process was not substantially prejudiced by the delay. Retired Virgin Island Police Department officers Delbert Phipps Sr., Rosalind Bedminster, and Daphne Rouse-Carty returned to the Virgin Islands to testify. Virgin Island Police Major Crimes Officers Sergeant Mario Stout and Detective Nigel James also assisted with the investigation of the cold case. A false start by the prosecution led to another 6 years of legal wrangling before Stuart and Keough finally reached trial on August 1st, 2022. The prosecution proved to the jury that on the night of June 21st, 2005, and into the morning of June 22nd, both defendants, Keough and Vivian Stuart, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation unlawfully participated in causing the demise of Egbert Stuart by multiple stab wounds. A Virgin Island Superior Court jury found them guilty of first-degree slaying and abetting on August 11th, 2022. Virgin Island Attorney General Denise George said in a written statement, "Justice has finally been served, and I commend our DOJ prosecution team and the Virgin Islands Police Department, former and current investigators, and Cold Case Squad for their excellent work. This case required the teamwork of the DOJ with the VIPD and a relentless determination to bring the perpetrators to justice." She added, "Much gratitude also to the witnesses who came forward. We want our community to know that just because a case is 17 years old, it does not mean we stop investigating. I truly hope this provides some degree of comfort and closure to Mr. Egbert Stuart's loved ones." On January 19th, 2023, 63-year-old Vivian Stuart was sentenced to life in prison without parole. It is unclear what 60-year-old Jacques Keough's sentence was, but he also faced a mandatory life prison sentence without the possibility of parole.